Good day, and welcome to Conversations with AARP in the Virgin Islands. I'm Troy Deshabere Schuster, State Director of AARP in this territory, and as usual, as always, it's a pleasure to be with you today. AARP in the Virgin Islands has teamed up with the Virgin Islands Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs to present a consumer protection series to equip Virgin Islanders with the tools to protect them from abuse, discrimination, and exploitation. From natural disasters to the COVID 19 pandemic, price gouging harms the most vulnerable in our society. State laws refer to price gouging when retailers and others imposes unjustified and extreme price increases intended to profiteer from a natural disaster or emergency, typically on essential products or basic necessities. In 1979, the first price gouging law was enacted in the state of New York. Today, more than 34 states and territories, including the United States Virgin Islands, have created their own price gouging statutes to protect consumers from price hikes in times of crisis. Today's show explores the price gouging statute in the United States Virgin Islands that helps to stabilize prices on essential goods in the event of a state of emergency. And so, to discuss this further with us, we have with us today Attorney Richard Evangelista, the Commissioner of the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs, and also Horace Graham, the Director of Licensing within the same Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the show.
Good day, Mr. Deshabere Schuster. I'd like to thank AARP of the Virgin Islands, as well as your co-host WTJX for allowing the DLC as well as ARP to share with your membership this particular topic, which is speaking about price gouging in the U.S. Virgin Islands in the event of an emergency or disaster. And I'm joined by the Director of Licensing, Mr. Horace Graham, who needs no introduction to many, but for others who have been their license through us, they are unaware that someone is actually overseeing our wonderful team who issues these licenses.
Great. Thank you so much, Commissioner. And we all know that you're the Commissioner, so you oversee all of the activity of the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs. But as I was discussing with you all before the show, not many people hear about the Director of Licensing. So, Mr. Graham, if you will, share with us, what do you do as the Director of Licensing in particular?
Well, good day, Troy. Graham here. I oversee the division of licensing, that is the issuing of business licenses and the regulation of same. So those are the standard business licenses, your stores, your consultants, and a variety of other licenses, especially since we're talking about disaster periods. It'll be your like your masonry contractors and carpenters, etc. So we oversee those and ensure that they are licensed appropriately.
Great. And so do you also, as a Director of Licensing, enforce the law? So if people are operating without a business license or doing something outside of the scope of the business license, do you also enforce that, or is that
our division partners with the enforcement division, and as part of that process, yes. So we do enforce and ensuring that individuals that are supposed to be licensed are appropriately so.
Great, great. And thank you both for being with us again today. And this is the second in our series of programs regarding scams and also other issues that harm the consumer. And it's very timely as we begin hurricane season. We're freshly into that now, and we always very concerned about hurricanes and what happens after. So with regard to Hurricanes Irma and Maria, they dramatically impacted the territory in September of 2017, triggering a state of emergency. The catastrophic event temporarily suspended the import of goods and essential services to the island, disrupting the entire market. How has this experience elevated the LCA's role in disaster planning and response for the territory? So if either you, Mr. Graham, or Attorney Evangelista, if you'll tell us, how should we be preparing for this hurricane season?
Sure. As the Commissioner of DLC, I'd like to say that when I entered this department, the experience that the department had and learned from the passage of Hurricane Irma and Maria in 2017 allowed them to re-examine what our role is upon the passage of a storm. And I'm going to allow Director Graham to share with you it was implemented by the department to ensure that consumers are protected in this territory. Director Graham?
Yes. So one of the key things that we focus on during this time, especially in lessons learned from the past, was number one, we wanted to make sure that our licensing application system was strong and robust. I know we use we use that word quite a bit in post Maria Irma, but the real truth, the truth about it is that we spent a lot of time and effort ensuring that our systems are backed up, that we have off-site storage. And so in the aftermath of the storms and any potential disaster, the DLC is prepared to, as long as we were restored with internet service, the DLC is prepared to resume the full function of license issuance and renewal.
And what is important about that, Mr. Dishabir-Schuster, is that because we were online via host outside of the territory, we were able to assist persons when and if they contacted us to determine whether or not a contractor was licensed, whether a vendor was licensed. Because as you know, immediately after a storm, those persons whom we commonly call on to repair a home, to purchase a certain item, whether it's a medical item or something special, persons flock to disaster areas many times. And the reason for your show is that sometimes you have people who are genuine, but many times you have people who take advantage of the situation, appear on the scene, and may appear to be wanting to render assistance, but in fact, they're here to engage in a scam. They're in fact not a valid contractor. They may be selling an item that is invalid in the jurisdiction from which they arise. So we are sharing with the listening audience, after a storm, please utilize us. We may be housed at a separate location physically, maybe in government house, maybe at a remote government location, but we are available to answer your question. Is X business legitimately licensed in the Virgin Islands? And Director Graham will now go into why is that important? Because then you need to ask a follow-up question. Are you insured?
Yeah, so one of the things that you want to, and I'll give you the URL for the website because we believe that is critical, especially during disasters, and that's one of the lessons learned components, is we sought to make sure that the database search feature that gives access for the community to know who is licensed or who is not licensed, that is now available online. And that is being, actually, as we speak, we are doing some tweaks to it to make sure that the search feature works a lot smoother. So this is something that we want to encourage folks to do. Get familiar with our website. It's not too long. It's www.dlca.vi.gov. www.dlca.vi.gov. If you go to the website page, you will see a search bar, a search feature. Simply enter the name of individual or the name of the business, and you should see any individual or business that is appropriately licensed. I think that that's a critical part of this for this community. Get in the habit of asking people for their license. And not only that, in the post-Maria, Irma and Maria, we learned how important it was for people to also ask about insurance. And so ask the folks, if someone is coming to say that they're going to provide you with repair services, ask them, can I see a copy of your business license? If they don't provide you with a copy of the business license, then check the system. Also follow up with them and ask them, well, can I see what insurance you have in case, the job is not done to your specifications, or, that you have recourse with that particular individual or entity. Now, also recognize that in the AARP community, there may also be business owners. So the encouragement there to those business owners would be to try to, especially if you're going to get involved in that sort of repair industry, try to also make sure that your company is insured and appropriately licensed. We also took lessons from that, and so we created a time span. I think it's about 60 days. We're trying to see if it makes sense to go a little longer given the length of the hurricane season, but 60 days prior to the expiration of your business license, you can log into the system and renew your business license. So that is something that we want to encourage the community to do, is to make sure your business license is renewed. And also for those who may not be business owners but wants to access the information for businesses, feel free to use our website. Again, it's www.dlca.vi.gov. And you will find all of the approved businesses. Now, if your business is delinquent or it's in any way not up to date, it will not show up on the list presently. We are in conversation about some changes to that during this season, but right now, only those legitimately licensed entities will appear.
And this is excellent information. And talking about insurance, is so very important to make sure that any contractor who comes onto your property is insured, not only in case they don't complete the work and you can go after them legally, for punitive damages, what have you, but also if they bring one of their employees onto your property and one of their employees gets hurt, breaks a leg or something, that their employee could possibly sue the property owner, right? And so it's really important for that contractor to have insurance to cover that kind of liability and to hold the property owner indemnified. So kind of here preaching to the choir because we have an attorney with us, Attorney Evangelista, and he can talk to that in even more detail than I. But it's really, really important to consider that when you're a property owner, to think about any contractor having liability insurance, because it's possible they could come after you for damages if they get injured on your property. If one of their...
Correct. And what may be of interest to the listening audience is Mr. Schuster brought up the notion that their employee may sue you. The insurance that you need to inquire in addition to liability insurance is workers' comp insurance, and that covers the employees of the contractor. It is very affordable, and you asking that contractor for that will cover you in the event that person is injured. So some terms, word of art: workers' comp insurance, liability insurance, general liability insurance. It's expensive, and depending on the amount of work that's being done, if it's between $5,000 and $10,000, and you can kiss $5,000 or $10,000 goodbye in the event you get something that you didn't bargain for, that's one thing versus completely renovating a home for $200,000 and $300,000. Ask the questions. Asking the questions is affordable. There's no charge. But in the aftermath, if in fact something occurs and you're dissatisfied or the work was not done properly, you're going to face a long legal battle, and it's not affordable, and you don't have the time to waste. Thank you, Troy, for that question about what experience we've learned after the hurricane, because it's important that we share our experiences to avoid unnecessary harm to our listening audience.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing with us. And when it comes to price gouging, as again we enter into the hurricane season, we see that your department has put out a press release regarding price gouging and needing certain price lists from retailers, etc. Can you tell us a little more about all of that, and what actions are you taking now that we have actually entered into hurricane season?
Sure. As your host indicated, we actually have a price gouging statute within the United States Virgin Islands, and it's implemented when and after the governor of the Virgin Islands declares a state of emergency. The price gouging statute is one of the powers that the governor can implore and request of myself. I have the power to actually institute it. And currently, as you know, we're under a public health state of emergency since March 13th, 2020. and the governor will identify those products that will assist in the recovery from said emergency. In this instance, it's COVID-19. So currently, only those items that will assist with preventing the spread or the containment of COVID-19 are covered. Unlike what our listening audience, or I should say your listening audience, see, I'm getting too comfortable with your show. This is like our show now.
Absolutely.
But more commonly, the audience is accustomed to learning that the state of emergency price freeze covers all common items such as edible items and things in the hardware store, things that are necessary after a hurricane. So yes, if in fact a state of emergency is declared for a hurricane, at that time, those more commonly known common commodities are actually included. And hence, currently under the existing state of emergency, and when I field calls from persons, whether it's elected officials or members of the AARP questioning what are we doing, in fact, the current state of emergency price gouging, price freeze is currently limited to certain products. However, a press release went out, as the state director said, and every first of the month, grocery stores, hardware stores, contractors, they submit to DLCA their price list, because that is the list and the prices that we compare to any item that is frozen after the declaration of a state of emergency and a price freeze is put into effect. Because if in fact the prices are so disparate that they cannot explain to us why the price has changed dramatically, then in fact we can actually find that person. And late last year, the legislature and Governor Bryan signed into law creating a criminal penalty for persons who actually engage in price gouging. Prior to, DLCA could administratively fine a business, but what we found is, like in any business, the Mr. Troy Schuster will appreciate this. People will balance the cost of a fine versus continuing to engage in the alleged illegal activity. And if in fact it's going to cost me $1,000, but I can make $1 million, obviously a 1% trade-off is fair game to continue to engage. But now with the actual criminal penalty that has been imposed, the department can choose to refer the matter to the Department of Justice. And in fact, the Department of Justice can then arrest that person and prosecute them for engaging in price gouging. So we've upped the ante as it relates to the vendors, not because we want to be punitive, but in fact, we want the vendors to know that we're keeping an eye on you. And in fact, you know, the consumers should not have to determine whether or not they're being unfairly charged a price, because now, in fact, we have somebody who's looking out. And Director Graham was instrumental in assisting us to get this through, because experience is a lot greater than the new person on the block. So with his input, we were able to get that through. And if he has any words as it relates to that price gouging, he can share with you, because he has experienced it firsthand with consumers coming forward.
Before we go over to Mr. Graham, just one more quick question before we go to Mr. Graham for his comments on this. So is this criminal penalty a misdemeanor or a felony?
It's a misdemeanor.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a misdemeanor, and the to be exact, it is misdemeanor punishable by a fine of not less than $1,000 or more than $5,000 per violation. So this is for anyone who offers goods and services for sale to the public during the state of emergency and does not possess a business license, or who willfully charges unconscionable prices.
And so while it doesn't come with imprisonment, at least it's a misdemeanor and they'll have a criminal record, and that will impact their renewal of the business license in the
Yes,
future, or acquisition of any other business licenses because of that criminal record.
correct.
Good. Okay, excellent. Mr. Graham, comments on this?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we want to make sure that the community understands is that there's also a role that they play in being able to make sure that we keep everyone honest. And that's one of the things that we learned also, is that DLCA has a limited number of individuals that actually do this, respond to these price gouging, issues. And so the community really is who we depend on, your audience, to, if you feel, if you sense that you are being taken advantage at the pump, at the wherever price gouging may be occurring, then please, if you see it, if you see something, say something, get in touch with the DLCA, report the concern. If you've paid the money, bring your receipt, and file a formal complaint so that we can take it to the next level.
And to assist the membership of the AARP, the DLCA is actually assisting the formation of the first nonprofit consumer advocacy group. It's called CIA, Consumer in Actions, not Central Intelligence Agency. However, the intel that this group will gather is actually going to be a more formalized manner for someone other than DLCA to share information with us, because we know that if in fact some of your members decide to join with this nonprofit group, they are the individuals who are in the stores, who are on the street, and the more eyes and ears, it can assist us to actually enforce the price gouging statute if in fact price gouging is occurring. So that's gonna be one of the topics that I ask you to share with your community as soon as the paperwork, the formation documents are filed with the Office of Lieutenant Governor.
Excellent. So this is a brand new 501c3 that
Yes, it's
we
up and running. Yes, sir.
great, and it's being called Consumers in Action.
Yes, the CIA group.
CIA group.
You like
Excellent.
that, huh?
Yeah, no, that's really, really needed. You know, it's almost like a watchdog group, right?
Correct. So
I'm
we
sure.
look forward to collaborating with ARP if that's possible, and if not possible, with your membership, because we are going to rely on the community to be part of this group. And the statute that formed DLC actually calls for the department to assist with the formation of these nonprofit consumer advocacy groups. And the great thing about it, once the group is actually formed, this group can be invited to the legislature to testify when the price gouging statute is amended. You know, whether they're pro or con, there's somebody to quote unquote assist us to ensure that we are also doing the right thing at the department on behalf of the community.
I love this. This is great, and thanks for doing that. This is absolutely fantastic, and ARP would love to partner with the CIA group. Absolutely. I mean, so very important. And so thank you and your team for moving this forward so we can have this kind of activity here, this kind of action group. Mr. Graham, any comments on it?
Yeah, just it is very important for us to realize that we are all consumers. Even those of us who work here, the commissioner, myself, and our team here, we are all consumers. And so I think one of the mantras that Commissioner has been saying, if you see something, say something, that has been something that he has really sort of driven home with us as a team. I want to encourage the community that if you see something, say something. It only helps us to have eyes and ears throughout the community in ways far exceed our individual capacity or even our departmental capacity. So partnering with the community is an essential part of being able to have a successful run at this price gouging protection that we're trying to implement.
And so what I'm looking forward to, Mr. Schuster, is that in the event a storm occurs and this nonprofit is formed, then together, this is another method by which we can ensure that price gouging, if it occurs, does not extend longer than it actually normally would, because now we have the extra eyes and ears on the ground. And who would be more annoyed than someone dealing with the stress of a passing storm, now having to confront somebody and say, wow, these batteries, why does it cost this much? No, now instead of complaining, they're actually going to have a venue to vent and report, and then we can do something about it. So I look forward to inviting your membership to join with the CIA, as well as your group itself, to assist us to get this task done to protect the consumers of the Virgin Islands.
Absolutely. ARP will be front and center. Absolutely. And, you know, when we talk about price gouging, and especially looking at this pandemic, we know that you put certain actions or certain things in place to make sure that businesses weren't price gouging during this this health emergency. But then at the same time, we know that the cost of some commodities actually increase. So how do you balance that out with businesses so that they're able to charge a fair price and not suffer any financial harm?
Sure. So this is a great segue into we educate before we regulate. DLCA is actually the scale that balances the interests of both the consumers as well as the businesses. Because without the businesses, the consumers would not have products to purchase. And without consumers, obviously, businesses would not have the profit to generate. When in fact a state of emergency is declared and there is a price freeze, at the point when somebody believes and reports to us that a price gouging allegedly is occurring, or our team goes out and observes something, we have the vendor produce to us or present to us an invoice of the price of the item that we're seeking to determine whether or not a price gouging has incurred, as well as the shipping costs. And we factor in the excise tax now, the gross receipts tax, because in fairness, nobody opens a business to go out of business. So, for example, with COVID-19, the procurement of those items that would prevent the spread of COVID-19 internationally, globally, those items were scarce. Some items were completely unavailable. So in order for our local vendors to have products readily available for your constituency and our consumers, they had to procure products sometimes third and fourth markets that they had never even thought about. So yes, the prices were a lot higher than we were accustomed to pay for gloves, sanitizing wipes, sanitizer, cleaning products. However, when we checked with the vendor and compared their price list to the price on the shelf and the price procured, at that point we would make the determination. And in case your listening audience is wondering, and you are wondering, there are currently 2 pending cases that we have not yet resolved, and it relates to the price of a can of Lysol. So because it's currently under investigation, I won't reveal the names, but
Right.
there's a business on St. Croix and a business on St. Thomas, and the price was about $39 a can. I mean, whether it's a mistake or not, that's irrelevant. The point is we have to be conscious of what our consumers are going through, and we just want to keep everyone real and be fair about it.
Wonderful. Listen, we were fresh out of time. We have just about 30 seconds left, or a little bit less. It's amazing how the time flies, but we look forward to having you both on the show again. Thank you so much. And just before we close out, Mr. Graham, if you will give us that website again that people could go to find out about businesses that are licensed here.
Yeah, so that website is www.dlca.vi.gov. www.dlca.vi.gov.
Great. Thank you both so much. And we look forward to having you on another show in the very near future.
Thank you very much. Wishing everyone a wonderful day.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.